I've listened to Ray. We're trying to work out how to do these blends. And what I want to show you this afternoon, I have a little short, not official video. It's something that my wife and I put together. We're going to show that to you after a bit. But I want to show you some of the covers that we're planting into. We talked a little about aerial seedings. How can we do a better job? How can we guarantee that we have this 4 to 6 week window? Well, my answer is, and my answer at home is, 10% or 15% of my corn, we moved the day length up. You know, that gives me a little bit of time. So the corn's ripened in probably 2 weeks earlier, or the beans are 2 weeks earlier ripening. It lets me get my combine set, lets me get my dryer running good, you know. And we can plant 10 days earlier than normal rather than using the same day length corn and not sacrificing the yield. There's as good a yielding corn at 106 or 105 day as there is at 113. You know, there's a lot of research out there now showing us that this corn will yield. Don't matter what company you go with, they got corn that yields at 106 that compares to 115 or 112 day corn. You know, shorten up the day length will help. That way we get a little longer growing season. I think aerial seeding will work. I am really hoping and knowing that high boy seeders are going to work, and I think that's the wave of the future for corn and bean producers to look at. It may not be a piece of equipment you want to own, you know, but if you're able to trust 3 other farmers that's your neighbors and have fun with them, do it on the shares. Buy 25% of it. Put some young buck in there that likes to run the computers and everything and let him do his thing. You know? If you're 70 years old and you like to run computers, sit in it. I don't care. You know? Just get it done. This is rye, 20 pound the acre, aerial seeded, way too much cover. I think we're backing down our annual ryegrass to about 12 to 14 pounds out of an airplane. Because we are not killing it till the day before or the day after planting. If you're in Indiana, Illinois, they are killing their annual ryegrass the first week in April. It's 4 inches tall, it kills easy, it's not a problem. They also have different soil types. They also have tile drainage. Maybe that's the right thing to do. But to me, I'm losing 25 days of good sunlight that I can capture with my cover crop. I don't want it dead, personally. These soil results. This is Ethiopian cabbage. This is a brassica. I like this plant immensely. It has a taproot, normally 8 to 20 inches long. It stands up all winter. It doesn't make a cabbage head. The leaves are very bitter, you know. But it does a lot of things for our soils. This is our peas and radishes again. Here they are. There's what's left of our winter covers that we were using before we plant. This is pearl millet. This is a summer mix going in after wheat. I think it can go in to standing corn with a high boy seeder. It's not going to go in with an airplane. The reason is we got 10 different size seeds. The smaller seeds are going to go to the outside of the pattern. The larger seeds are going to fall down between these wheels. And that's what's going to happen, guys. It's going to be segregated in the air. An air seeder that don't segregate is bad. This represents 20,000 pounds of biomass. This much biomass can change your organic readings about 0.2% to 0.5%. On Dave Brandt's farm, we can change it 1 whole percentage points. But we know what we're doing. We've been doing covers a long time. It won't happen the first year. What I like about blends that have different heights, it's like the picture of the prairie that Ray had. We have 10 different species with 10 different size roots, 10 different depths of roots. We have as much biomass under the soil as we have on top of the soil. Here's annual ryegrass and crimson clover. There's what it looks like. If you're in a fastly growing development community, please don't plant this. They sell it off in lots in a big hurry. Build houses on it. Not a good thing, you know. Here's another 8-way blend. You can see the sun hip coming to bloom there. You can see it kind of segregated, got in rows. That just happened to be in between the corn rows. It was growing there better than it did on top of the corn. Sun hip again. Pearl millets. Just imagine this is 20,000 pounds of stuff, you know. There you saw that picture. I like that picture, you know. I like to think, well, you like to make everybody think, can we plant in this? Yes, and we're going to show you a movie how we're planting into it here in just a little bit. This is the forage in April 29th, just before we plant. You know. There's October the 21st on Sudan sorghum and pearl millet. There it is again in December. Absolutely no erosion. Yes, ma'am.
This is in April, the slide before.
The slide before was in April. Let's see. Yes.
Did you then apply Roundup or something?
On this piece, I selected not to apply any herbicide because if you look, the mustard is in full bloom, getting ready to make seed. Didn't bother me because I didn't think there was enough to worry about. We just went in and planted corn. About 3 weeks later, the mustard turned white and died, and we have not had any weed pressure since. We will probably have pretty good mustard come next spring for next year, you know. But we can plant in this. No problems that we've had this year other than we're going to have to put a rub bar in the front of the planter to push over the big sun hemp plants that you see standing right here. Because if they're leaning to the right and you're coming through on the left, guess what happens, ladies and gentlemen? That pokes up into drive chains. That pokes up and helps push off the wires of the monitor. So if you go ahead of the planter and put a rub bar on it where it'll rub it down before it gets to the planter, you won't have that pressure. You know, these are things we learned and no one told us. I called Gabe Brown, that's done this for 3 years, and he says, well, I ain't going to tell you all my secrets. You have to learn something, you know. So that's how we learn, by doing things. Again, a nice carbon mat. I like an 8-way blend. I like an 8-way blend that has 2 carbon sources. I like 4 nitrogen sources. And out of those 4 nitrogen sources, I like to have 2 of them as a summer warm season nitrogen source and 2 cool season nitrogen sources. And I like 2 brassicas, such as radishes with either turnips or Ethiopian cabbage or rapeseed or mustard. You know, those are all in the brassica family. Again, there's some of the radishes that's still surviving in December 22nd. By March the 1st, we've had a lot of cold weather. All the radishes have croaked by then, and everything's brown there, so all the residue is brown. It's about 3.5 inches tall when we're planting in April. You know, looks like similar to this. If it looks like this and it's rained 30 inches in May, it is a bear to plant in. I'm not kidding you one bit. It's no different than what you guys are looking at conventional. You know, the ground's so wet and sloppy you can't do anything with it. The ground's wet and sloppy underneath these covers too. But I will say one thing. 2 days after it quits raining and the sun shines on it, we'll be planting this before our conventional neighbors ever think about pulling their equipment out in the field. Again, there's a shot of it just to show you how it's controlled all the winter annuals. You know, we don't have henbent or chickweed, those kind of things that come in the wintertime that everybody else sees. If you don't know what those are, that's that purple flower you see in March and April growing. It's about 4 inches tall. Chickweed has a white flower. Again, we're planting into it. Yes, you can plant in green stuff. Yes, you can burn it off ahead of time. The biggest problem is if you plant in this stuff and kill it a week ahead and it's brown before you plant and it rains 1.5 inches at David's farm, that's like a bowl of jelly underneath there. It takes a while to dry it out because you actually, what you did when you killed this residue, you just took a black perforated tarp, spread it across all the acres you sprayed. That way the sunlight and the wind won't help to dry out the ground. It has to be percolated out either through the tile or through lots of root mass and earthworm holes to get it dry. That's why we're not killing till we just plant. And those are management decisions. By not doing tillage, you have time to think about things. Lots of time. Again, ryegrass, crimson clover. The neat thing about it is, don't take much horsepower. You don't see a lot of dust on the tractor. You don't have a lot of dust on the planter. Air cleaners don't need to be changed very often. Those kind of things. If this was conventional soils like I've seen, my neighbor's tractor, your planter, when he starts in the morning, you don't see it till evening. You just see this cloud of dust going down through the field, back and forth, back and forth. Here's ryegrass. You can see they did a pretty nice job. You can see the marks the planter made. We don't want our planter to lift any soil. We're using an 8 wavy fluted coulter that opens a slot 3/4 of an inch as it waves through the ground. Our disc blades open a slot 5/8 of an inch. So our disc blades don't pinch the soil as it goes through. It leaves it lay where the fluted coulter left it. Then we use a rubber press wheel on our planter. No, I don't believe in row cleaners. No, I don't believe in spike closing wheels. I think those are just things to put a Band-Aid approach on poorly managed soils and poorly managed covers. Again, there it's going. And here is our seed right here. This is a 12-way blend. You can see that our residue we're planting in is about 2 inches thick. You can see the root system, but look at the granularization of the soil where the seed's going to lay. Just some more shots of how, with the duals, that our planter actually lays down the cover crop and really easy to control as you're spraying. This is corn in a pea and reddish field on May the 26th. Whoops. Here we're planting soybeans in standing rye with our drill. We use both our drill and corn planter. We see no difference in the yield between a drill and a planter if both pieces of equipment are set right. Our drill is sowing 225,000 seeds per acre, not sowing, not planting. Our planter is planting 225,000 seeds per acre, but they're placed in the soil. That's why we see no difference in the yield. So many times a drill will put on 20% more than a planter will. That's why guys use planters instead of drills. This gives you an idea how tall it is. They've been asking lots of questions about when do you roll the rye. Well, if you'll notice, there's a white dust. By the day's end here, this tractor is all yellow. Looks like a Moline instead of an Alice Chalmers with dust from pollen of the rye. When you're getting that situation, the rye is the right size to roll. If you're not getting any dust on the hood of the tractor, it'll just spring back up and you'll have to use a herbicide to knock it down. When I get called out to look at drills, I like to look at them in the field so I know what's going on. I'll walk up to the drill. The first thing I'll look at is that disc blade right there. That's the fluted coulter. That's a 25 wavy blade. The waves on the 25 wavy blade is 1 inch wide. Inch variation until it gets to the smooth part of the blade. If you look at that, that's about 1 3/4 inch depth. I have seen them where the polish clear up to the hub, and the guy wants to know why he can't get any beans up or wheat up. You know, look at your equipment. Look at what's going on. You can see the seed blade. It's about 1 3/4 to 2 inches polished also. Simple things make everything work better. I took this picture just to show you how tall the rye was, you know, and sometimes the gates aren't wide enough to get it in, so you just pull her through there anyhow, you know. But you know, that thing's heavy enough that the fence posts don't make much difference anymore, you know. Just there's the rye. This is 30 pounds to the acre, fellas. This is plenty thick, you know. Here's the crop roller again. I really like to use it, but you got to use it when the plants mature. If you remember a picture of Ray's duct tape roller, the vetch and the clovers were all in bloom. He could control it. If they wouldn't have been, they would have sprung back up, and I'll guarantee you he wouldn't have had 40 species or 50 species growing in his garden if that would have sprung back up. They would have overpowered it. You wouldn't roll in September because that's a September 5th picture. That was when our field day was. We were just trying to demonstrate how nice a roller leaves the residue. And this thatch is 6 inches or 4 inches thick. Remember, if you're rolling to the right, you must plant to the right. You don't want to plant to the left because you're trying to jam all that corn and stuff that you rolled through that residue, and it's wanting to fold it up and wad it up in there. If your roller is not as wide as your planting unit, you roll on a 3 to 5 degree cant, and you'll have no problems going through the residue. Various company makes rollers. This was one they shipped to me before my field day. They said, "You'll really like this, David." They just took angle irons, 2 foot long, welded on a regular roller drum. It's heavy. I was disappointed on how it rolled the crop because it wasn't far enough along. I thought as big and as mammoth as that roller was, it would definitely flatten it, but it didn't. And I think, for me, it's a little expensive, you know. Here's the rye after planting, or the rye that is brown, and there's the soybean coming up. That's about 6 days after planting beans. Here's our corn, and you can see our rye thin. You know, 15 pounds of rye in corn is all I want, because rye is a grass, corn is a grass, and there's some kind of problems with getting emergence if the rye is over 30 pounds the acre in corn. I think we need to remember, I had a conversation just a minute ago with a young man about planting corn and how well it does conventionally. When he plants in May and he's no-till corn, never grows very well because the soils are cold. We are working with a warm season grass. We need the soil warm to make a warm season grass grow. That's all I'm going to tell you. 50 degrees, it'll germinate. 60 degrees, it'll grow. I like warmer soils to plant into. We have backed our planting dates up probably 2 or 3 weeks, mainly so we can get the corn up and we don't have trouble with it. Again, there's the corn. This is ryegrass and crimson clover. This is about 3 weeks after planting. This is annual ryegrass and crimson clover. It was about 18 inches tall when I was planting the 5th or 6th day of May. We sprayed it with 40 ounces of Roundup, 25 gallon of carrier, the regular amount of AMS, plus some citric acid to lower the pH of the water, because that's what they said we needed to do. It still took 2.5 weeks to turn it brown. During that time, it went to head. As it grew, it sucked the moisture out of the ground. We were really getting dry, and I was really getting worried. Before I left home on Friday, we had a 1/2 inch of rain. This corn grew 3 inches, and it looks a whole lot better than it does there. So yes, even experienced no-tiller worries about his corn in some of these covers, you know. This is our first no-till field of This is a new rented farm. We no-tilled some stuff in there this fall, and this is this spring, and this is what Ray calls fungi. I used to call them roots. I just thought they were white roots. I still call them white roots, but that's Ray said that's what we need, and that's how active we can make soil in a short period of time. There's our rye. There's the beans again. Just wanted to show you the rye don't have to fall down to make the beans grow, you know. I'm hoping these beans will make 70 bushel beans. You know, here's corn with lots of residue. This is 22,000 pounds of residue we planted into. Again, another shot of it. Don't mean to bore you with all the pictures, but I thought they were good to see. There's our cornfield, just so you can see that it's coming right along. And these are the turn rows, or the headland rows, and it's still growing, you know. And one of the last pictures, this is we have some soil that we do not get covered. We just wear out in the fall, or we just say the heck with it. This is about a 40-acre bean field. It's been no-tilled 5 years. I threw this picture in here just to show you how dry and hungry my soil was getting without a cover. We will dig more diligently next year, and we will have 100% of our ground covered for this next year. Spike closing wheels, I really don't think you need them. We put them on this planter for a fella because he read on the internet or Facebook, so-called expert says everybody needs spike closing wheels. He guaranteed him another 12 bushel of corn. I said, you get that in writing? He said, no. You know. So I put them on. I adjusted them. You know. He also come to me. He was an old guy. He dropped this planter off and went to Florida. He said, fix it. We had $9,000 in parts for that planter. It was a 6-row planter with 5 splitters. After we put the spike closing wheels on, he come picked it up a week ago. He brought this list of stuff he read on the internet, and he says, David, before I take it home, you're going to pull it. We're going to put 2 befores underneath the gauge wheels, make sure the disc is 1.5 inches deep. I says, I'm not taking my time to do that. You do that when you go home. I says, we'll hook it on the tractor, took it out in the field. We set it like I set my own planter. We pulled it. The seed was 1.5 inches deep, just where we wanted it. He said, I guess I don't need no 2 befores. You know what's going on? He called me on the way out here, said he was done planting. It was the nicest planter he'd ever used to get his job done. Again, there's the nutrients. Again, the test, yields, the corn. And that is how we get along with our covers. About 45% of our acres, we use no fertilizer or no herbicides. The reason that is because it's been in no-till more than 7 years. The balance of the land is land that we acquire, and it's only been in no-till maybe 1 year, maybe it's the first year no-till, and it takes a while. It takes about 5 or 6 years for us to get everything started to make it work. You know, go ahead, Ray, we can talk as this thing's playing. Turn down the volume. There we go. This is just what's left of our winter covers that's growing. Hairy vetch, Austrian winter peas, radishes. You can see how nice the soil's coming here. And some questions that was asked while this is going on, this goes on for a little bit, was how we work with our landlords. I have some 1-year contracts. I have some 3-year contracts. I have some 5-year contracts. And I have some 10-year contracts. The last 3 years we've changed our contracts and worked with our landlords. We first take a soil sample. We agree upon a price. We sit down with them. We show them exactly what their pH levels are, their phosphorus and their potash levels. We guarantee them that when we leave that farm, it'll be there or better. If it's better, they agree to pay me the going rate for the increase of phosphorus and potash that I put on their farm. Because with cover crops, we can bring those readings up. Since we've done that for 3 years, now we've not lost a farm because it cost them money to get rid of us. You know, because we have fellas driving 40, 50 miles away, and we had it this spring. We had two young boys that were about 30 years old. Evidently, they know a lot more about marketing than I do. They were driving around offering $300, $350 an acre for ground that won't produce 120 bushel corn. You know. And our landlords are just like everybody else. They want the most money, so that you have conferences with them and you talk to them and you tell them the benefits about what you're doing. Because when these boys show up, they got quad track internationals. They got rippers that run 42 inches deep in the soil. They ripper 3 years running. The third year, their corn yields go down. They don't pay the rent the third year, and they leave. That's their policy. 3 years on the farm, and they're gone. You know. So we talk about what's going on. Here you can see the planter working. You can see there's no soil being moved by the planter. You can see the markers making a little mark. We don't need a ditch to follow in the field. We just need that marker to penetrate and remove the residue so we can see where to come back to. That's why we don't like to run around in the field with any piece of equipment other than the planter beforehand. This is our 12-way species cover. Yes, it's kind of ugly, but man, is it a lot of fun. You know. You never have to fight the mud. You don't have to fight insects. You'll see a little fertilizer in the tanks. We're not using fertilizer in this field. We just shut them off. Like I said, we have like 23 landowners, less than 5 acres. Some of those farms we put fertilizer on, so we just have to carry it with us and do what we want to do. If you'll notice, the planter's running smoothly. The parallel linkage is about level. The field's not really that rough, you know. And we plant at an average speed of about 4.8 to 5.2. That's as fast as we plant with the planter and as fast as we plant with our drill. Our annual fuel consumption for the acres that we farm is 2.4 gallons per acre per year. Here we're planting in the ryegrass. Probably wondered what that looked like. Like you can see, it's about 18 inches tall. It's almost at the bottom of the frame of the planter. We're planting corn. We're planting corn. Kind of hard to imagine you can plant corn when it's not brown or black, you know. But it works. Beans the previous year, aerial seeded ryegrass and crimson clover, September the 10th at 16 pounds the acre total mix. I had $20 in the seeding cost, $15 in the airplane cost. We did the Savito test in this field. We have 194 pounds of nitrogen the day before we started planting. We had 130 pounds of phosphorus, and we had 475 pounds of potash, according to the Savita test from Rick Haney. From OSU Labs, I don't know what the nitrogen reading was. They don't do that, but they showed we had 42 pounds of phosphorus and 100 pounds of potash. From a chemical test of cover, or from soils. There's the roller. There's the, whoops, up, back up. Don't back up with the planter, it plugs it up. Find the roller. Yes, we burnt this down, yes. Yeah. We try to do it the same day. You know, if you're doing this for crop insurance, you always do it the day before you plant. You know, that's always the answer. I kill my cover the day before you plant. You know, I mean, if I had crop insurance, that's what I'd tell them. This is the roller. You can see, I really thought it would flatten it down, but you can see it's just springing back up. That's because the lignin in the plant, or the cells in the plant, were still firm. The plant hadn't started to go into maturity, so the plant was still firm. As soon as it blooms, starts to bloom, the plant gets hollow like a straw, and when you roll it that way, it sounds like you're popping popcorn, because you can hear those plants actually pop open, you know, with the roller. There'll be a place or two here when he turns around and comes back up through. There it is. We had about 65 or 70 pounds of rye right in this area. You can see it rolled it down better because it was heavier, you know. But that's a whole lot of residue to plant through. Questions? On this, we're planting beans into this. Yes, I would be concerned about the allopathic effect on corn. Yes.
That's why we also use a mix.
Right.
If you use a mix, you don't have that issue.
And this is the way I like to tell farmers. Farmers will call and say, I'm a conventional farmer. I want to go to no-till. I want to use your covers. How do I start? This is how I get them started. It's real simple. This rye can be sowed with an airplane. It can go in after you harvest the corn. It can be planted clear up till Thanksgiving in Ohio if you get snow, and it will grow. Rye is really forgiving on planting dates. If you plant it at Thanksgiving, it is not going to pollinate till about the 5th or 6th of June. So don't be planning on rolling it as a way of using it as a cover. You know. Here we're planting beans into it on the move. Thank you, sir.
Oh, by the way, Sudan grass is very allelopathic. Sudan grass. So keep that in mind.
So when you do one of these diverse mixes, and you're got it in your, or you've got it in your box for seeding it, look across that ground that doesn't shake that out, you're going to lose the heavier seeds first?
Question was, as we do the diverse mixes, and we're sowing it with a drill, will it separate? Yes. Yes, it will. What we do, we fill our drill box about half full, which will give us enough about for 11 or 12 acres. You know, after we plant about 5 or 6, we just go back and manually stir it, and we don't have much trouble. But I'm really not concerned about segregation to speak of. You know, I don't want all my sunflowers in the last 50 foot, no. But I really don't care if the sunflower is 10 foot apart or 30 foot apart.
You're not going to monoculture, and what we do is we mix the seed before it goes into the
Right.
seed.
And if you're really concerned about it, you know, an ounce or two of water per bushel on the seed will keep it sticking together. And we don't worry about the depth. We try to get it sowed about 1 inch deep on the blends, you know. And that's a little deep for the fine, real fine stuff like the radishes and the clovers. But what happens is as the larger seeds are coming up, like the rye and the Sudan sorghum and the pearl millet and the other stuff, it helps the smaller stuff to come up. We always get a successful seeding of all the plants we seed from a 6-way mix on, you know. This is just an idea of how things look on Dave Brandt's farm. You're all welcome to come anytime. I'll take time to show you our farm. If you're ever in Ohio, we're just south of Columbus, about 20 minutes. And the last thing I want to try to show you is he's coming to where the sprayer will be here. And it's real important to get your sprayer working right before you try to attempt to spray these large covers. Here we're on full. This is our 90-foot sprayer. It will clear 8 foot of material with the booms. Of course, the tractor won't, neither will the sprayer, but the booms will, you know. But what we got to do here is you got to have a sprayer, or adjust your sprayer to spray 18 inches above the tallest rye. Because if you're dragging the nozzles through the rye, you're only going to kill right where that nozzle touched. You don't get great dispersal. You know, we have went to the attempt on sprayers when they showed up 10 to 15 years ago. We used custom sprayers. We always carried 3/4 inch galvanized pipe with nipples on them, so when they showed up, they could put a 2-foot standpipe and then put their nozzle on it because their booms wouldn't go high enough. This sprayer, it does. You want to use at least 20 gallons of water as your carrier, and you want to keep the pressure up between 35 and 45 pounds so you can push that material down through this rye cover, you know. And we have to be a little meticulous on this farm because this guy likes his 20-foot wide grass strip that he can mow with his mower because it keeps him out of the house so his wife ain't picking on him, you know. So he told me not to kill the grass strips, you know. But there we go. You can see the amount of a carrier coming out of there, and this way the crop turns brown. Any questions? Now that I've totally confused you, I'll let Rick finish up here. And yes.
You touch upon this year in Iowa, we're going to have some 3% plant acres. Talk about that and use crops.
I think if you got preventive planting, I think, man, this is the real time to really consider using some cover crop. Why do you want that ground naked, bare, and hungry? It won't be naked, bare, and hungry, because as I drove through Iowa, where they hadn't worked the ground, God had put a cover crop on it. It wasn't what that farmer wanted, but there was something green and growing out there. And it was these weeds. You know, I think now, within the next 2 months, if you can't get it planted to beans or corn, and you want to go to covers, I'd head to the local NRCS office, ask them for an equip program. They're going to pay you 25 or 30 bucks an acre. That covers the seed cost, you know, and start your no-till and cover crop in your preventive planted acres. Now's the ideal time to think about this 8 or 10 or 12-way species. You've got a wide enough window to grow this stuff. Don't be in a hurry to plant it. Just get your stuff lined up. Start planting it the middle of July. That way it won't bloom and go to seed. You won't have trouble that way. All the nutrients will stay in the root zone where it's supposed to. And you'll have a good jump on what's going on.
So they're going to plant a summer mix?
They plant a summer mix that either you can fix it up so it either all freezes off, or you have 4 or 5 species that will over the winter and grow back in the spring. And I think you're on the way to lowering your input cost, you know. And again, you need to leave this strip, whether it's 2/3 or half the field you're not going to treat, or whether it's just 40 foot you're not going to treat because you don't believe us, you know. But you need to leave some strips in this to justify what you're doing. You need to put full rate fertilizer on part, half rate fertilizer on some, and none, because that's how you're going to learn. Don't do what we tell you. Try this stuff on the farm. Everyone sitting in here that's a farmer's probably got a yield monitor in their combine. You know, then you can tell. You don't need to ask your agronomist to come out or NRCS to come out. And you don't need to be ashamed. Just sit there and validate as it goes through the field. You know, this had full rate fertilizer. The corn made 100. This has half rate fertilizer. Corn made 100. Made more money here. This had no fertilizer. Corn made 100. Ah, the light bulb went off. I didn't need to do those other 2. So next year you can learn to adjust that. Every year is different. That is why we're having trouble with land-grant universities working with it. They come to me, they say, David, we want to help you. We want to do this. We want a textbook answer. There is none. Just like this year. This is not a textbook year for Iowa. Everybody's got wet fields. You know, every year's different. I can't remember when I've had a normal year. You know, 2 years ago we didn't get anything planted either. We didn't started planting corn until June the 6th 2 years ago. I feel for you guys. But June 6th corn, with good weather afterwards, and it was great weather. Every week it rained a half an inch. It was warm. We planted corn June the 5th, June the 6th, June the 9th and 10th it was up. Couldn't believe corn could come up in 2 days. It kept growing, 226 bushel corn. You know, maybe we're forcing the envelope too soon if we're trying to plant corn in April, first 2 weeks in May. Thank you very much.